Hey, everybody.
Welcome to the Great Rivalries podcast.
I'm Mr. Hodgkinson.
And I'm Taylor H. And today we're talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens.
Hey, Taylor. Tell us a little more about today's great rivalry.
Today we are looking at the oldest rivalry in the National Hockey League, the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens. It dates back over 100 years to 1917. Between 1944 and 1978, the teams met each other in the playoffs 15 times and faced each other in 5 Stanley Cup finals. So we've got a 100-year-old rivalry. Why is it important?
Well, it's important for many reasons. It's symbolic of a rivalry between Canada's two largest cities, Toronto and Montreal. However, it goes deeper than that. One, Toronto, is mainly English-speaking, and the other, Montreal, is in the heart of French-speaking Quebec. Historically, English Canadians were from Britain and followed the Protestant religion. In contrast, the French Canadians were from France and usually Roman Catholic. They did not have a strong allegiance to the British crown. For many years, French Canadians were treated badly, even in their own province, because of British rule. They took great pride in their hockey team and French Canadian players, especially Maurice Rocket Richard. Until in the 1970s, God Save the Queen was sung before Maple Leaf games. O Canada has always been sung before games in Montreal. So, let's continue with a little history about the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Formed in 1917 as the Toronto Arenas, they became Toronto St. Pat's in 1919, and then the Toronto Maple Leafs in 1927. They won their first Stanley Cup in 1932 against the New York Rangers. Since then, they have won 12 Stanley Cups. They have retired the numbers of 19 players and have 75 members inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. They have rivalries with many of the original 6 teams, including Detroit and Boston, as well as a growing rivalry with the Ottawa Senators, with games against them called the Battle of Ontario. Their greatest rivalry is certainly against Montreal. It reached its zenith during the 1967 Stanley Cup Finals, which was also during the year Canada turned 100. The city of Montreal was hosting a worldwide festival called Expo 67 that year, and the Canadiens were expected to beat the Leafs quite handily. Still, the underdog Toronto upset the Habs to capture the cup, which was, to this date, their last. Okay, your turn for the Montreal Canadiens.
The Montreal Canadiens. Formed in 1909, they won their first Stanley Cup in the 1915 playoffs against the Portland Rosebuds. They have since won 24 cups in total. They have retired the numbers of 18 players and have 69 players associated with the organization in the Hockey Hall of Fame. They have a strong rivalry with the Boston Bruins, but are best known for their rivalry with the Toronto Maple Leafs. They were incredibly dominant in 3 different eras. Between 1923 and 30, they won 3 Stanley Cups. 6 cups were won in the 60s, and they repeated that feat in the 1970s, winning 6 more Stanley Cups. They are the winningest franchise in the NHL. In professional sports, they are 3rd in the world and 2nd in North America for most championships. Only the Glasgow Rangers Soccer Club with 54 and the New York Yankees in baseball have 27 more than the 24 held by Montreal. So, tell us about the impact in popular culture.
The story The Hockey Sweater by Roche Carrier was written in 1979 and made into an animated short in 1980. It highlights the importance of this rivalry. The opening quote from it was also on the Canadian $5 bill for years, along with a picture of kids playing pond hockey. Hockey remains an important part of the Canadian identity, and this is the longest-standing Canadian rivalry. Games between the two teams are always popular and competitive, even when one team is not doing well in the overall standings. There is a mural created by Charles Pache highlighting the rivalry on display in the College subway station in Toronto. Both the Montreal Forum and Maple Leaf Gardens have been declared historic sites and preserved, even after the two teams moved to new arenas. One is an apartment complex, and the other is a market and college campus. All right, time to break down the numbers.
By the numbers. The two teams have met 814 times, and Montreal has won 398 of those meetings. Toronto has won 318. The rest are ties or overtime wins. The biggest victory came in 1944 when Montreal won 11-0. The longest win streak also belongs to Montreal with 14 wins. In the 5 Stanley Cup meetings, Toronto has the edge, 3 cups to 2. In total cups, Montreal has 24, Toronto has 13. Hall of Famers, Montreal has 75 and Toronto has 69, but there is some overlap because some of the players played for both teams. So the question now is there a winner?
By the numbers, Montreal is the clear winner. However, I think Canada and hockey are the winners because this heated rivalry will go on for a long time to come.
I agree. Montreal has the numbers to win this rivalry, but the fact that it will continue for years is the best part.
Thanks for joining us on the Great Rivalries. See you next time.
See ya!